World news from the New York Post. Hamas ready to begin freeing 20 Israeli hostages a day earlier than expected in Trump peace deal. Yay, peace in the middle. I knew there was going to be peace. Because, they're all such nice, reasonable people out there. Of course they're going to rub along well. That's why we should keep importing millions of them. Because they all get on dead well and they're all dead civilised, aren't they? Oh no, hang on, what's that? Some breaking news on the BBC. Live from the BBC, clashes erupt between Hamas and armed clan members in Gaza City. Oh yeah. I forgot about that one detail, yeah. Which one detail, you might be asking yourself? Well, I'll tell you. The one detail is that 60% of the region have a tendency to jump the bones of the nearest relatives, fold up the cousins, impregnate people with almost the exact same DNA as them, and then, lo and behold, squirt out a toothless, jug-eared, big-nosed mutant with the intelligence quotient of a chicken McNugget. which is why people like me have said, maybe not a good idea to let 30 million of them move in. Yeah, all of them men. You don't see any women and kids on the boats, do you? So sit back and relax and we'll have a good old chuckle. Not just at this news, but at the millions of woke people in the West who think the best thing you can do to be progressive is to move in millions of low IQ, high aggression, intolerant, violent inbreds to help with diversity. Brilliant. Right then, here we are, brilliant news. Obviously, it's going to fall apart in the middle. How do people think that the gift that keeps on giving, that is, the Israel-Palestine conflict, ultimately the source of all of our wars, that's why the Twin Towers went down, that's why there was a massacre at Luxor, that's why Benghazi happened, that's why every single major conflict, every appalling terrorist atrocity, every killing, act of wanton butchery carried out by the regulars at the snack bar over the last 50 years is all down to the gift that keeps on giving. The boil on the arse of humanity that is the Israel-Palestine conflict. And best of all, and this is my argument I've always said, I'm a man of logic and reason, cold hard fact. I'm not emotional, I'm an ENTP, I demand logic, okay? I'm not prejudiced, I'm just good at maths. That's why I'm a little bit more concerned if I walk past 25 Somalian blokes than if I walk past 5 or 6 blonde women on a night out. These things don't mean that you're filled with hatred. They simply mean that you can do maths and you read the newspapers, alright? But anyway, I digress. Hate, death and mass murder is all that will ever come out of this region, and we know why. Many times I said, if you could talk me into it, a good reason like the Camp of the Saints, where France gets totally taken over by the regulars at the snack bar, if you could give me a good logical reason whereby the whole world, we could achieve global world peace if we all converted and embraced the snack bar, if we all did it and everyone followed the same religion and there'd be no violence and no murder and no hatred, I'd convert. If you could make a good argument, I'd do it. But you know what? Even if we rolled over and let them bounce on our collective shitboxes for the next 100 years so the whole Western world becomes one giant caliphate, even if we let that happen, it wouldn't solve the problem, would it? Because the Sunnis and the Shia don't like each other. And then there's Ibadis and Ahmadiyya and all these different sects. So even if the whole world was the same religion, they'd still keep killing each other. So surely it's logical to not hold that opinion and think maybe we should just dig our heels in and absolutely mallet them. Yeah. Regarding this story, at least 27 people have been killed in clashes between Hamas and a Gaza City clan since the end of major Israeli operations in the territory. Yeah, clans and elders. These are the type of people that the Labour government bend over backwards for. Yeah, Keir Starmer's all about the law. You gotta respect the law. law. However, when a snack bar regular goes, can we go to the Sharia court and maybe have a couple of elders discuss whether or not my 8-year-old sister got buggered to death by a granddad? Then they go, yeah, we'll defer to the elders because it's medieval shite and anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together knows it. Residents describe scenes of panic as dozens of families fled their homes under heavy gunfire. Many of them displaced multiple times during the war. Amazing. It comes as Israel is waiting for Hamas to release the remaining hostages. Yeah, cheers then. That's going to happen, innit? Yeah, nice, honest, decent Palestinians. Course they're gonna. President Netanyahu said, tomorrow's the beginning, but there's still very big security challenges. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. In exchange for the hostages, Israel will free 250 Palestinian prisoners and 1,700 detainees from Gaza, and dozens of aid trucks are going in, with lorries queuing up at the Rafah crossing with Egypt, and Trump's going to attend an international peace summit in Egypt. Okay, so the aid trucks are going in, yeah, because the thick as shit pinkos think that's going to get handed out fairly. No. Now, let me tell you what's happening with them aid trucks. The clans and the elders are going to take all of the aid, and then if you want some bread, love, you best be willing to get down on your hands and knees and put some work in, flour. Yeah, trust me, you're going to have to spit 5 or 6 cocks out before you start on the bread. Because that's what happens. These morons, why do you think we had to oversee aid handouts in Afghanistan? We had to have snipers on the roofs when they were giving out pencil case and school bags to little girls. Because nothing works right out there. Corruption, vice, murder, violence, that's the currency these people peddle in. So if you think the aid's going to get to them, you're having a laugh, aren't you? The big burly men get all the aid because they can either A, violently beat everybody else up who's trying to get some aid, or B, successfully wank off more terrorists than a thinly wristed woman. It's ludicrous. This is just endless wishful thinking by the morons that run the world. Anyway, to sum up, it's going to kick off shortly. Yeah, they'll talk about peace. It's all going to go Pete Tong. They probably won't give the hostages back. No, they're just filled with hatred due to propaganda from day dot. The little 2-year-olds get trained with the mother's milk to hate the 4B2s, and in a lot of cases, vice versa. The tribal savages all around the world can't help but give in to their baser instincts, and that's just the way of it. So this isn't going to achieve anything. They're all going to keep on murdering each other, and even if the 4B2s and the snack bar boys finally have a big enough dust up that someone finally wins, well, they'll all be kicking off with the internecine warfare in their own little daft sects, won't they? So it's never going to get sorted. This is why people like me have advocated putting a wall round the UK, building a gigantic electrified 20-foot fence with the entirety of the border with Europe and the rest of the continent, and just have it. I'd have a gigantic electrified fence from northern Finland all the way down to the bottom of Bulgaria where we share with the Turks, because come on. If you think the Turks are our allies, you are a raving lunatic. When I was out in Afghanistan, there was some Turks out there at Camp Dogan, and they were basically helping the Taliban the entire time. I wrote a lengthy report, a patrol report, and handed it in to the intelligence officer, and he told me, that's great, but we can't publish any of that. No. So the Turks are the enemy, just if you haven't been paying attention. Don't go there on holiday unless you're a psychopath, and you wanna either get your passport pinched at best, or at worst, get shanked 40 times and left to die in an alley. And that's the way of it. We need to totally segregate from the barbarians that are at the gates, or Europe is going to be a caliphate in the next 50 years, I'm telling you. Oh yeah, and shall I just sum up with one story that I saw this weekend regarding the invaders at the gates? From Visegrad 24, a 20-year-old Afghan asylum seeker has been arrested for surprise sexing an 80-year-old woman to death in Niort, France. The woman died from her injuries shortly afterwards. The victim was followed home by the struggle snuggler after visiting her 100-year-old mother in a retirement home where the Afghan man worked as a caregiver. Worked there as a caregiver, and he's into 80-year-olds? That's like giving Ian Huntley a job in a creche, isn't it? Or putting them in with the people. It'd be like a fat kid in a candy store, wouldn't it? Putting a bloke like that in as a care worker. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the stories like that every single day coming out of Europe. And the leadership lie about it, gaslight you about it, and just endlessly make shit up so you don't pay any attention. Here's your bog standard left-wing activist, for example. I'm waiting for Tommy's fans' reaction to this. British man David Andrews was sentenced to 27 years in jail for charges of sexual abuse against children. A judge described him as a heinous predator. Yeah, this bloke is actually labouring under the delusion that millions of people haven't been lolling all weekend about the fact world famous kiddie fiddler and former Welsh rock star, this fella Ian Watkins, just got the good news in prison. like what? People don't think there's any white kiddie fiddlers? Really? It's news to me. A few million people seem to be breaking out the champagne at the thought of this fella getting shanked in prison. So I don't know what planet the lefties are on. I genuinely don't. But all I have to say about that is he saved the taxpayers a fortune, first thing. Second thing, I don't really understand why they have to arrest people when they're already in prison. What do you need to arrest them for? You come in, they've shanked him, and you just go, right, lads, you're not allowed to do that. That's against the rules. But you're already in jail, so no chocolate rations for the next 2 weeks. All right, clean up after yourselves, lads. See you later. I mean, that's how you handle that problem. It's done. Save us all some money. There's no need to go through court proceedings again, is there? They were taking out the trash. As far as I'm concerned, why don't we just legalise capital punishment, give these guys 2 weeks off the sentence, and then start taking out the rest of the trash? For example, Mr. Rudu Kanubu, who frankly needs to be next on the list. Drag him out of his cell and give him the good news on national television. Because that's a job that needs doing. And as I basically started about the Allens and the 4B2s and segued into diddlers and imported kiddie fiddlers and everything else, we may as well do a couple more. I'll turn this into a BBC Spews. Here is another case, just in case anybody wants to claim that, the gaslighting continues and the lefty lunatics on Twitter say, who cares if an Afghan diddles an old woman to death? I mean, it doesn't happen very often. Well, I don't care if it happens once. And further to that, here's another good story. When 8 Iraqis performed a truly despicable gang surprise sex incident in Vienna. You remember that one? Another good BBC story. And let's do one more while I'm here. In Austria, an Afghan migrant caregiver, another weird how they're making them all work in care now, isn't it? He's been arrested for rogering an 82-year-old woman, and her son watched it all through cameras installed in the house. Christ on a bike. Imagine that. The only possible thing you could watch that'd be worse than that would be sitting through the last Indiana Jones film. The company that sent the migrant caregiver to the elderly woman accused the victim's family of illegally filming it. Yeah, a narco-tyranny, just throw a bit of that into the mix. In Vienna, an 82-year-old woman suffering from dementia, savagely diddled by a caretaker who was an Afghan called Saraf. Nice one. So that was a bit of a tour de force. That video went all over the place, but I do that. I ramble sometimes. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the world's falling apart, and almost all of it is down to the Bronze Age savages that refuse to get with the programme and not strictly adhere to the words of men who thought the earth was flat. All right, that's the main cause of our problems, and why the leaders of Europe insist on importing those problems. Well, I think we'll have to save that for another video. But that's just what I think. If you think I'm totally unreasonable, please let me know in the comments so I can piss myself laughing reading the total gibberish you've took the time to type out. All right, thanks for tuning in. See you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.